Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, held on Monday, August 24th, 2020. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Today's meeting is streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archive video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors and staff and others who've been invited to participate as experts should you be with us. We appreciate your participation tonight and welcome your decorum. Let's move first then to item 2.1 of our agenda, which pertains to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time I'll invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared already in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. I've had a few notifications ahead of time. I'll call first on Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I would declare this evening a conflict of pecuniary interest on 5.4.1, 5.4.4, as both do refer to the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, and then subsequent to that, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens. Deputy Mayor Kellum, I think you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I would like to also declare pecuniary interest on item 5.4.1 with regards to the accounts for Perth Meadows as my mother and father-in-law are tenants, and also 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. And Councillor Andreessen.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Kasenberg. I'd like to declare pecuniary interest on item 7.1 regarding the Agricultural Society's request for a street closure. I am a director of the Listowel Ag Society and therefore need to declare pecuniary interest. And also that would mean that I'll declare pecuniary interest on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen. Any other councillors who we've not heard from yet who wish to make a declaration at this time? Seeing no indication of that, let me move on to explain our virtual processes. Tonight, I'll be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us. I will do this somewhat alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request or the mayor forget that you've declared pecuniary interest, please let me know, and I'll move on to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the list. This is a normal procedure consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors, you're reminded that if I believe you're not audible, I will call on you, so you don't need to ask if you can be heard. I'll be the arbiter of that. Councillors are further asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and return to mute. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda tonight, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows. The agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. We start tonight with Councillor Duncan. Can I call on you to serve as our mover for that?
I'll move that motion.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you. Councillors, any discussion or debate? Please indicate so in the chat box. Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up is item 3 of our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require Council's recognition and action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 3 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion? Seeing no indication of same, I have a motion here related to the consent agenda, which reads as follows. That consent items 3.1 to 3.3 be received for information, and the minutes of the August 17th, 2020 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to serve as our mover for that one?
I so move.
Thank you. And can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our seconder for that?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this item? Seeing nothing from the clerk, she's giving me the negative nod. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Before I go too much further, Council, was improper of me not to advise that Councillor Richardson has provided his regrets for this meeting, and we're not. Councillor Johnston has now offered his regrets as well. Thank you. So that is going to bring us through agenda item 4. We have no public meetings or delegations for this evening's meeting, which thus brings us forward on our agenda to item 5, reports from departments and key staff. This evening, we have no report from the CAO's office, although I can assure you that office is very busy. So next up is item 5.2, reports from the clerk's department. For item 5.2.1, council is provided with a report from North Perth planner Sean Yilmaz that recommends that this council implement adjustments to bylaw number 158, 2015, a bylaw pertaining to the review of site plans for certain forms of land development. This bylaw intends to delegate some authority to municipal staff pertaining to the review of site plans. And we have Mr. Yilmaz, our planner, with us, so I'll call on him to give us an overview of this request and refer to his report. Sean.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and good evening, members of council. So yes, as you mentioned, the report before you tonight examines the opportunity to delegate approval of site plans to North Perth staff. At present, most new developments within the municipality are required to go through site plan review and approval process to ensure development proposals meet municipal standards. The Planning Act does not require a municipality to consult with the public on matters relating to site plan control, as this process is intended as a technical application similar to that of a building permit application. The current bylaw was adopted in 2015 under bylaw number 158, 2015, and was passed in order to implement formalized site plan control guidelines, which is found in Schedule A of the bylaw. The current bylaw also requires the approval of plans and or drawings by either the council of the municipality or the Ontario Municipal Board, now referred to as LPAT, or the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. Staff is seeking direction from council on implementing a new component into a revised site plan control bylaw, which will effectively delegate approval authority to the chief building official and the municipal clerk, and rescind the public meeting requirement for multi-unit developments. Delegating approval authority to the chief building official and the municipal clerk will provide the ability to approve site plans deemed to be acceptable by the municipality in the same manner currently conducted by council. The same review and the same commenting process would occur, except that final approval decision would rest with the CBO and the municipal clerk. If the site plan could not be supported by staff, or the applicant is unwilling to implement any requirements needed by the municipality and or the agencies, such decision to deny an application would continue to rest with council. In other words, the CBO and the clerk could not deny an application. Multi-unit residential developments consisting of 25 units or more will still require approval from North Perth Council. And staff is also proposing an activity report to be prepared for council and be presented on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis. Staff is recommending that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report and further approve bylaw number 122, 2020, which would effectively amend the bylaw and delegate authority to staff. Thank you.
A small correction, we've taken note that the bylaw is numbered 123. Council, any questions or first comments on this proposition from staff about this delegation of authority? Clerk Nichols. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you, Sean, for the report. Frankly, this is something that I've encouraged council to consider for some time. I'll be speaking in support of the staff recommendation. I think this will be of benefit not only to developers, but also staff and certainly council as we're trying to streamline our processes. And I think this is clearly a move forward in the appropriate direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further? Clerk Fairfields? Any other councillors wish to ask a question or comments at this point before we consider a resolution? Plural, actually, resolutions. Okay, well, we have two resolutions. The first relates to receipt of the report and various housekeeping, and the second relates to the reading of a bylaw pertaining to the changes here. So let me work through these in order. First, we have the general resolution, which reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report dated August 24th, 2020, prepared by the planner, entitled Site Plan Control Bylaw and Delegated Authority, and approve bylaw number 123-2020, and further that resolution number 204.0504 be rescinded. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for that one?
Yes, Mayor Kaysenberg, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, would you serve as our seconder for that?
Yes, I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion or debate? Anything there? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And we've lost the vote connection for Councillor Barnes. What say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell and Councillor Barons. We have okay, so that's carried. Thank you. And then we have the bylaw resolution that reads as follows: that bylaw number 123-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 158-2015, being a bylaw to designate a site plan control area. Be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. And that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Barons to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
I can second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on the bylaw? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. That moves us on to item 5.2.2. Council is provided with a report from North Perth planner Sean Yilmaz pertaining to property in Listowel Ward, colloquially known as the Terrier Subdivision. Council will recall seeing a tree management plan for this property and defeating an earlier resolution which intended acceptance of the report to further goals of property development. We'll call on Mr. Yilmaz again to review the updates made to this request per council mandate after the last presentation on this matter. Mr. Yilmaz.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. So as mentioned, the tree management plan with recommendations was presented to North Perth Council at the August 10th, 2020 council meeting. Council was not supportive of the tree management plan and the proposed tree enhancement plan as presented, and requested staff and the applicant revisit the tree enhancement plan to determine a comprehensive approach to implementing the proposed management and enhancement plans. Following feedback from council, staff is requesting that the proposed tree enhancement plan be solidified through a landscape design package, which must include the following. The site must be replanted with a variety of trees in open spaces, buffers, and along the internal streetscape. Vegetated areas along the residential buffer must have enhancement plantings completed once removals have taken place. Replacement trees within the buffer or perimeter plantings must be of native and non-invasive and from the list of contained within the arborist report. In addition to the municipality's landscaping requirements, a replacement program of 1-to-1, that is one tree planted for every tree removed, is required and must be planted on site. If this target cannot be achieved, the trees may be planted off-site pending approval from staff. 2, a monitoring and maintenance program must be developed by a qualified professional and will involve a minimum of 2 years of monitoring. The program should synergize with the landscape design package and must ensure plants are maintained in early spring, in the fall, and during dry periods. 3, a deposit in the amount that is still to be determined will also be held with the municipality and will be returned following the monitoring and maintenance program and demonstrated compliance with the tree enhancement plan. And finally, if council agrees with the with the conditions mentioned in the staff report, appropriate notice will be provided to residents within a 120 meter radius of the subject site. The notice will advise residents that council has accepted the tree management plan, which will effectively meet one of the conditions of the draft approved plan and will allow the development of the lands to proceed, provided the developer meets all other obligations. Staff is recommending that the council of the municipality of North Perth accept the tree management plan, and further that a qualified professional prepare a tree enhancement plan and landscape design package to be included as a schedule within the subdivision agreement, and further that a monitoring and maintenance program be established and approved by staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Yilmaz. I'm going to take note of one thing with regards to the resolution, and that is that the resolution talks about the inclusion of a landscape design package to be included, but it doesn't actually stipulate that it be subject to the conditions in your report. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't add some language which closes that gap and make sure that the landscape design package meets the requests that have been recommended by council and through your report. Does that seem reasonable, Sean? Is there a reason not to do that?
Well, we could definitely update the wording to be specific. It is all pending approval of the manager of operations, which was guided by these conversations. We would not be approved otherwise, but if we want to tighten up the wording, we could most definitely do that.
I would feel more confident if we had an inclusion that said something like subject to the conditions approved by council from your report. Okay, councillors, any questions or comments? Or thoughts, anything? Okay, so we're not seeing anything. So with the council's consent, I'm going to make that little modification in this resolution and try to read this out here. I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accept the tree management plan prepared by MHBC Planning and submitted by 2459825 Ontario Inc. And further, the qualified professional prepare a tree enhancement plan and landscape design package subject to conditions approved from the planner's report to be included as a schedule within the subdivision agreement, and further that a monitoring and maintenance program be established and approved by the manager of operations. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Callum to serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that motion. Thank
you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our second?
I will, Mayor, if I could just put a suggestion here before that, that we include the date of August of the planners report, because we had two of them.
Right.
Dated today, August 24th. That's my suggestion. If everybody's okay with that.
Let me just jot. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thank you. Are you okay with that, Deputy Mayor Callum?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm just making some modifications. Bear with me. Okay, right. So I've included the date now in my draft. Danette, if you are keeping track of that, thank you. Okay, so we have this duly moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate? Clerk Fairfelds, anything that we're seeing? Okay, we're not seeing any indication from council for discussion. So let's have that vote.
Tried to get in there, but missed it.
So that is carried. And sorry, Councillor Seiler, it sounds like you were expressing a little frustration with missing out on the opportunity there. I guess we didn't see you quickly enough. But I think we should move forward. Next up then is item 5.2.3. Council is provided with a report which outlines from North Perth Planner Mr. Yilmaz, which outlines the request for zoning bylaw amendment to apply a R4 zoning with a holding provision to the property of the former Anglican church lot in Atwood. I'll ask Mr. Yilmaz to review this proposed matter.
Thank you again. So a joint public meeting was held during the July 6th, 2020 North Perth Council meeting to discuss the proposed residential development of a property that had previously contained a church or an institutional use, which has now been removed. The joint the joint public meeting was held to review both the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, which would allow for residential development to proceed. The zoning bylaw amendment which was seeking to place the lands into the residential 4 zone, was deferred pending an official plan amendment with the County of Perth, which has since been approved. The applicant was required to move the land from the institutional recreational designation and place it within the residential designation of the County of Perth official plan. The applicant is now seeking to remove the lands from the institutional zone and place it within the residential 4 zone in an effort to establish a multi-unit dwelling containing 4 units. Staff has no concerns with the proposed residential 4 zoning classification, as this is consistent with neighboring properties. However, the neighboring lots are predominantly of low density residential in the form of single detached dwellings. Staff is of the opinion that several site-specific provisions and regulations should be included into the amendment in order to achieve development that is appropriate for the Atwood settlement area. If the property develops either as a triplex or a fourplex, it is recommended that the site be required to have a maximum permitted height of 6 meters or 20 feet, have 2 additional parking spaces for visitor use, require dedicated storage for waste and recycling, and require a planting strip along the perimeter of the property where it abuts low density residential uses. This would only apply to triplex and fourplex dwellings. If the property is developed with a single detached dwelling or a semi-detached dwelling, these provisions do not apply. Additionally, it is noted that the property is not currently connected to municipal water, and this connection is a requirement of the County of Perth official plan. Section 6.4.7.4 of the County of Perth official plan provides site-specific development proceeding by plan of subdivision or multiple unit developments shall be connected to municipal water supply system. As such, a holding provision is included with the bylaw and is identified as R4-21-H2. The -H2 holding provision will place a hold on development of the lands, but will allow the site plan to move forward with approvals. A building permit cannot be issued until such time that the H2 is removed, and this can only be removed once confirmation is received that all servicing requirements have been met. Staff feels that the zoning bylaw amendment with the holding provision is consistent with the provincial policy statement and is in conformity with the County of Perth official plan. As such, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the zoning bylaw amendment with a holding provision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Questions or first comments on this issue? Clerk Bergfeldt. Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Question through to Sean. When is it anticipated that the developer is going to extend municipal water services? Is it possible, or is it just a matter of money that has to be paid to extend those services? Like, is there capacity issue, or is it simply a payment for the extension of services? Thank you.
Yes, good question. Thank you. So it's not a capacity issue. It's more of a location issue. There is services, I believe, 1 or 2 streets over. And it would be, my understanding is that MTO does have some work scheduled there, and it would probably make sense to line it up during that. But that is something that's out of our control. At this point, it would be up to the developer to investigate the opportunity to bring it on at his own will, or wait, or explore other options. Thank you.
Anything further? My understanding, just per Councillor Rothwell's question, is that our proposal to build out the Atwood water system that was made under the green stream for ISIF was rejected. So as a consequence, the moving forward of building out a water provision service to all of the village of Atwood remains at this council's discretion and in particular at this council's budgeting discretion. So this could take a while. Anything further? Clerk Bearfelds, do we see any comments? All right, I'll offer my comments in general, and that is, as I've said before, I've had two issues with regards to this application. The first being that I don't believe the form of development is consistent with the form and fabric of development in Atwood. Despite the fact that I am the mayor who beats the drum about increasing density, I have been concerned about preliminary look proposed for that property for a whole bunch of reasons, and believe that a fourplex in that area is not appropriate to the form of Atwood. That's a personal opinion. The second, of course, was a concern about water and provision of water. And at this point in time, water services are not available all that close to this property. The closest water line in Atwood, as I understand it, is down Queen Street, which is 2 blocks over. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the building out of a water system in Atwood is now at the discretion of this council since our first attempts, at least, at securing grant funding from the ISIF program have been rejected. So I am cautiously saying that I will vote for this at this point in time, knowing that there are hurdles that remain ahead. Anyone else have discussion or debate from council? Okay, let's have that vote. Oh, did we have the motion? It's not been moved or seconded. I'm just going to jump this forward. How about that? I have a resolution and a bylaw for consideration in council. Sorry, my attention was distracted. That the council of the municipality of North Perth approved the zoning bylaw amendment with a holding provision affecting property described as lot 48 and part lot 49 of registered plan 253, 172 Main Street, Atwood, Elma Ward, in the municipality of North Perth, submitted by 2459825 Ontario Inc. on behalf of Justin Sargent. Councillor Seiler, can I call on you to move that?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as the seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay. Council, any further discussion or debate? Anything for purpose? Okay, well, let's have that vote. That is carried. Thank you. And now we have the bylaw for this, that bylaw number 90-2020, being a bylaw to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens, will you serve as seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on the bylaw? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 5.2.4. Council has received correspondence from the Baker Planning Group as agents for Mr. John Friesen pertaining to a land matter previously considered by council in the hamlet of Britton. I guess I'll call on Planner Yilmaz to review the details of the receipt of this letter and where things are sitting. Sean, did you want to give us a brief report, please?
Yes, thank you. So, as you recall, last week we had a public meeting to discuss a zoning bylaw amendment for a workshop located in the backyard of a property in Britain. Council defeated the motion to consider the bylaw, so the bylaw was never actually turned down. It gave the opportunity to speak with the applicant's agent, and they have they have something that they were hoping to run by council to see if that alleviates any of their concerns. Caroline Baker is on. If council wouldn't mind having her discuss her letter. If not, then I can go through it a little bit more with you.
Okay, council, if anyone wishes to object to Ms. Baker presenting to us at this time, I would like that made known to the clerk through the chat function. Preference, are we seeing anyone saying no? Okay, so welcome Ms. Baker to our council meeting. We invite your comments on the letter in which you've proposed an alternative solution to try to get past the council's concerns about this application.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I will provide just some of the additional information provided in our letter. Following the discussion we had last Monday regarding this application and some concerns expressed about precedent and future down the road, what would happen should the owner wish to expand the building or change the use, and some concerns that even though there has been discussions, that wouldn't necessarily restrict a future application. Following the meeting, I had the opportunity to speak with the owner as well as the owner's solicitor on an option to assist in alleviating some of those concerns, to basically confirm the owner is genuine in indicating they understand they can't have future expansions. What we've discussed with the solicitor is that at the owner's cost, they would prepare what's called a restrictive covenant that would be registered on the title of the land, and that would carry in perpetuity with the property. It's not something that is just between the owner and the municipality. It's actually that something is tied and carried to the land. And essentially in that covenant, it would be agreed to that no future planning applications would be applied for to expand the proposed workshop. The benefit of using the restrictive covenant as opposed to, let's say, an undertaking is should the owner ever sell the property and it's listed for sale, when the purchaser goes to buy the property, this restricted covenant will be provided to them through the title search with their lawyer's office. So any future purchaser as well will be aware of the restrictions before they close on the property. And even once they close, this document will continue to stay registered on title of the property. So I'm hoping that assists in addressing some of the concerns about what, potential concerns of what could happen in the future. So I'm happy to answer any questions, provide further details at your discretion. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Baker. Councillor Behrens, do you have some questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I do have a few concerns and a comment in that, while yes, North Perth Council did not actually consider the zoning bylaw, we did consider a resolution that specifically said we were not going to. The motion was put forward and it was defeated, and that in a sense said we were not going to consider a bylaw. So I'm just concerned about our procedural bylaw and the process, since there would have to be a notice of reconsideration of a resolution. But my concern is that this conversation is premature to the reconsideration. I, for one, while it may appease some of the people who voted against the resolution, I personally simply do not believe that industrial or manufacturing should be on a residential lot. So in that instance, while it may appease some, it does not appease me, and I will stick with my original decision to vote against this motion. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we're polling at this point, or at least I am. What's council's will here as a next step? I think Councillor Behrens has raised a significant point, which is that from a procedural perspective, given that we turned down a motion to consider the bylaw, we are in a position where there'd have to be certain procedural requirements to be met, which the clerk can certainly explain to us if we need that. But I think most of us have enough familiarity to know that there's a there is a notice required from a member who voted in the majority to overturn this, essentially. Council, I'm interested in hearing your will, respectful of Councillor Barron's comment that in some ways, as a point of privilege, we might be a little bit ahead of the game here. Clerk Feltz, did you want to comment? Councillor Andreessen, did you want to comment?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I would like to just share that I'm in full agreement of what Councillor Behrens is expressing, so that you're aware of, more councillors' feelings at this time. I think that the concerns that we shared or expressed at the last council meeting, I think go beyond what, was really shared tonight in terms of making some changes. I think that the positioning of this type of business in this hamlet goes beyond what we feel is acceptable in a residential area. And I think that's really the core issue at this point. And again, I just want to say that I agree with what Councillor Behrens is saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else wish to make a comment about their will on this matter? At this point, no. I'm going to lend my voice to the same comment. I think it would be remiss of council to not deal with this in the aggregator, the big picture, as opposed to this one property. And I thought that was a point that Councillor Behrens made effectively during the last debate as well, that we need to consider the question of whether industrial operation of any sort should be allowed in residential zoned land. And I have my concerns about that in the broader scope as a policy matter. But certainly on this, I'm with Councillor Andreessen and Councillor Behrens, and that my position, and I did vote against this last time, has not changed. Anyone further? Okay, so at this time, really, council has three of us who were on the opposed side last time have expressed our intent not to change our position. Unless I'm hearing from someone else who was opposed in the last consideration of this with a notice for reconsideration, then I think that this matter remains silent, and that is the appropriate procedural perspective that needs to be followed. CO Snell, would you like to weigh in on this one?
Just it is more of a procedural matter. But basically, because the bylaw was not voted on, and to be fair to the applicant, the bylaw should be brought back to council and defeated so the appeal process can begin, so that the applicant would have the proper appeal mechanisms available through LPAT. So that bylaw should come back to council and be voted on by council, just to start the appropriate appeal process.
Thank you. That was certainly a question I had last week after the meeting, one of those sort of afterthought reflections. So the clerk is advising me that she will bring forward the bylaw for this matter to our next council meeting, which is September 14th. Councillor Seiler, you have a comment to make?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I would just like to know if there's any other spot in our community that is working on these agreements now, with a shop being on a residential area in operation. I'd like to know if there's anything in North Perth that's operating now.
Thanks, Councillor Seiler. Sadly, off the top of my head, I actually think I could identify one in the village of Atwood, but I'm not going to go beyond that. I don't think it's been fully authorized, in my opinion. However, if any staff has a response to this or could prepare a response to this for Councillor Seiler for our next consideration of this matter, it would be, I think, appropriate. The clerk is nodding her head. Yeah, I don't think we should ask staff at this time. I think there should be a little bit of a research phase. So we're sort of asking for a report. Do you want to vote on that request or not? Yeah, I think from a procedural perspective, we should be quite clear about this. So Councillor Seiler, you are asking for a report of staff on awareness of other instances where council and the municipality are aware of a functioning industrial operation on a residential lot. Am I fair in expressing it that way?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, thank you. So let's call that moved by Councillor Seiler, and perhaps I can ask Councillor Andreessen, would you consider being the seconder on that request for information?
Yes, I'll make that motion to second it.
Okay, thank you. So we have that duly moved and seconded. Council, any comments or concerns before we move that piece to a vote? Okay, Councillor Behrens.
I'm just wondering if we should consider that the motion should read in a hamlet or village.
Yeah, I think that's a helpful amendment if the mover and seconder are agreeable. Obviously, we're considering circumstances and the context is important. Terry, you okay with exploring that in the context of a hamlet or village in North Perth?
Yes, I'm okay with that. That's fair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, you good with that too?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Okay, so I think the deputy clerk is making note of that minor revision. Will we have an e-vote, Danette? Okay, so any further comments from council before we move ahead with a vote on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, let's have that vote. So that's carried. And I don't think any other matters at this point in time are required with regards to this matter, except to note that it is the intent of the clerk to bring the bylaw forward to the meeting for the sake of following the procedure outlined in land planning matters on September 14th. And should a councillor wish to file a notice of reconsideration or whatever it is that we call it in our procedure bylaw, then that is at the council's discretion. All right, let us move forward from item 5.2. Ms. Baker, thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate the additional information. So let's move forward then. Next up is item 5.3, and we have no indication of a report for council from our recreation department. That brings us to item 5.4, reports from the Treasury and Finance Department. I'll take note, of course, as we turn to item 5.4.1, that we have a review of accounts, which some of our councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item, which will absent them from consideration and voting. Regarding item 5.4.1, for the balance of councillors who can participate, are there any questions or comments about our report of status, review of accounts? Fairfields, anything? Okay, I have a resolution for our consideration then that reads as follows. Following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The bottom line is a hefty one, $3,016,146.15. I hope my number dyslexia didn't get me there. And I'll call on Councillor Anstead. Would you move that for us?
Yes, I will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder tonight for that one?
I'll second that.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. For item 5.4.2, Council is presented with a report prepared by the Finance Department related to the performance of the corporation against its projects or capital plan for 2020. This is something we talked about a few weeks back. I'll invite Ms. Hale, our Director of Finance and Treasury, to address this item. Ms. Hale.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. This evening, you are provided with a detailed list again of all our projects that we have for 2020. They've been color coded to assist with just a quick look at sort of what is intended to be completed in the blue. And so we're hoping that this format helps a bit in terms of where we're at. Some of the numbers have changed even dramatically since this was done on the 12th. And the last accounts payable, as you just saw, was substantial and included, some of those were not included in this listing. So it will be very volatile, and we'll bring this back to you every third week of the month until the end of the year, so we can keep you up to date as to where we are. We have a few that didn't have comments. We do have some staff that are hit and miss with some vacation, but we will make our best effort going forward to make sure that there are comments in each of the line items for your information.
Councilors, questions? Councilor Seiler.
Yes, Fran, just for confirmation here, our traffic lights out there by the A&W, is that in here? I'm just trying to find, was that in here?
Yes, they are. And I believe that the manager of operations, Lyndon Couch, is with us this evening too, if you have any specific questions with that project. But I understand that there's going to be light there here shortly.
Okay, is Lyndon with us?
Mr. Couch.
Thank you. There's 3 sets of software that they're trying to get coordinated at the site. They were working on programming those lights today. They are energized and ready to go. We need to get the radar system, which is a series of 4 cameras, working with the pedestrian signals, as well as the fire opticons for the fire trucks. So we're getting another service technician out on Thursday. He's from the light distributor and he's a programmer. So we're thinking Thursday's our day to have final programming in place, and that's the update.
Well, thank you, Lyndon. I appreciate your comments. Just Fran, I just would like to confirm that, so it was paid through our capital and not through the developer of Sugarbush, those lights.
Lyndon, can I request your comment on that?
There was a contribution in the agreement with Pioneer, the gas bar that was developed, but I am not aware and do not recall the Sugarbush agreement having a contribution in it. We can find that out for you.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. I've had those comments been brought to me, and I just wasn't too sure how that was. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Seiler. Councilor Andreessen next.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. First of all, I just want to thank staff for all their efforts in terms of monitoring projects and getting them off the ground and getting all the research done and tenders as such. It's a tremendous amount of work, and especially during these difficult times. So I do want to make sure that staff know that I do appreciate all their work. My question is for Ms. Hale, and that's regarding just the bottom line. So the bottom line shows that the estimated expenditure would be around 21 million. And at this point in time, and I know there's been a few changes, we're sitting at 6.9 million, and maybe, and you said that the current expenditures as of today have increased. So I guess my question just is around, do we anticipate getting through the majority of that 21 million before the end of the year? And I know we're going to get future reports, but it feels like we're kind of lagging behind, given the fact that there's been a lot of challenges with COVID-19, but just wondered if we could have just your comment on that. Thank you.
Yes, COVID is being blamed for a lot of things, and of course, this is just one of them as well. Certainly, we've had some delays in getting started, but our estimate to be at least 75 to 80% of the 21 million will be spent before the end of the year. There's some large ticket items to be completed in the next few months, which is often the case as we go forward with big projects that, of course, there's some holdbacks, and sometimes there's a bit of a push to get it done before the snow flies as well. So in terms of the construction. So yes, we're looking about at a 75% expenditure, but we'll keep you posted on a month-to-month basis so that you're well aware of what is transpiring with all our projects.
Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and I just want to echo Councillor Andreessen's comments, and thank you, Fran, for the report. I think it's an excellent format, and I appreciate receiving that information. Look forward to the updated comments that you'll provide in Council on the third week of the month. I just don't want to steal our manager's thunder here regarding the bridge replacement on line 81. So I would like if Lyndon Couch could share the good news today, because there's not a lot of good news always to share. So I think this would be a good news story for Lyndon Couch to share with Council. Thank you.
Mr. Couch, as tempted as I am to steal that thunder, I'll let you have it.
No, it's all of our thunder in terms of being able to drive down line 81 with the bridge opening this morning. Looks very good. Construction is fully completed. Signs are off the road, and we are driving the road now with normal traffic finally. So we're all excited about that. Yep.
That's a yay story, indeed. I too, let me echo my appreciation to staff for pulling this together. I think this gives us a much better perspective on what's on target to finish in this year, what will be rolled over. We can see some of those on this report, and some items which may have to just start in 2021, consequence of either COVID, which I'm not wild about giving it that much blame, but just general busy levels of activity that keep us from achieving some of those things may in fact be part of the explanation. A good report. Thank you, Ms. Hale, for that one. Appreciate it. Let's have a resolution to consider on this one, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive this report, 2020 Project Budget Comparison Update, August 12th. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I would move that motion.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
Yes, I will second that motion.
All right, thank you. Any discussion or debate? We see anything further with regards to this item, Clerk Fairfields? Okay, thank you. So I note that Councillor Johnston has arrived. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, so I think this has been duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That moves us forward to item 5.4.3, in which Council is asked to approve a bylaw which authorizes the provision of water services in an area in proximity to the Line 84 improvement project. Ms. Hale, you want to comment on this one?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Members of Council, as you can see, this is a joint report with the Manager of Operations, Linda Couch, and myself. Lyndon has worked very closely with our design and engineer on the project for Line 84. And within that, we have provided a water system, and it does provide access to some of our local property owners. The engineer has provided a costing, which is part of the Schedule B of the bylaw. And at this point in time, we're asking council to consider this water service arrangement. It's a little different in that it is touching on rural area. As you can see from Schedule A, the service area is not always something that is in our planning documents for a development right away, but in the event that that does occur, that we do have water going down line 84 from Tremaine just past Highway 23 to the west. And I believe that Lyndon is much more versed as to the technical aspect of this particular project for sure. And if you have any questions, he's here with us tonight, as you know.
Thanks, Ms. Hale. Any questions or first comments on this matter? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And Finance Manager Hale, our treasurer, just mentioned a point from a land use planning perspective. I would like to know if staff are proposing to incorporate the proposed installation of municipal water along line 84, serving an area outside of the service urban area of Listowel in the county official plan with its update. Thank you.
That sounds like a question for either Mr. Yilmaz or Mr. Snell. Sean, you want to take a first crack at this, or is this something that maybe Chris should give us an overview of? Sean with us still? Yeah. Okay, so CAO Snell, any comments on that matter?
Yeah, I can certainly speak to the initial aspect. We haven't had the detailed discussion of what will be noted in the service urban area expansion, if required, which we believe so far it is with the preliminary report coming from the county official plan. But we have not had those detailed discussions with either the county or the consultant on where those areas will be. Of course, we do require, I believe, the 25-year planning period now, but those details will come forward. But certainly, service area will be a key component to where those lands will be placed in the official plan documents.
Just to follow up, Mayor Keithenberg, the Planning Act does require the municipality to outline any and all provisions of municipal services in the official plan document. So I encourage and support those conversations to happen sooner rather than later. Thank you.
CAO Snell, I'm sure you're noting that as well. Thank you. All right, any further questions or comments about this matter before we turn to its active consideration? Okay, I have a resolution for us then to consider. That bylaw number 125-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the supply of water services to establish a serviced area for the imposition of connection requirements and to allocate capital costs to property owners within the serviced area be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. That the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for that?
Yes, I would move that. Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thank you. Nice to hear your voice. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our second?
I will second that to put it on the floor. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Clerk Bearfields, anything? Okay, well, why don't we have that vote? And that is carried. Okay, let's move next then to item 5.4.4, in which council is asked to approve a suggestion to allocate $7,500 from collected points on corporate credit cards to various program to the purchase of equipment for our new daycare centers in Listowel and Moncton. Ms. Hale, did you want to offer a little bit of comment on this?
I believe you've summarized it beautifully, and it's just for council consideration or any other thoughts that where the funds could go. This was something that we had done in the past and prior projects, and it seemed fitting that we have 2 new daycares on the go right at the moment that I'm sure Pat can find a useful place for this sum of money.
So just my quick question, this is a net add to the budget for acquisition of supplies there. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this is adding on to anything we've already allocated. All right, do we have any questions or comments before we consider this resolution? Councillor Anstett.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. Thank you, Fran, for the report. I noticed that it's mentioned in your report, but just again for transparency, I think itemized list of everything that was purchased would be helpful. Thank you.
I agree totally. It would be required.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Kasenberg. Just a follow-up to Councillor Ansett's question there. Where else would we have have funds in the budget if we weren't using the gift card here?
I'm assuming that given these 2 projects in place, that there's going to be some items that both projects will have afterthoughts in terms of additional purchases that might be required. If they aren't, of course, they won't be used for that purpose, and we'll reallocate them at that time. Or if there's another project that you feel that it would be better suited, by all means, please bring that one forward as well.
Okay, and next I think is CAO Snell.
Just to follow up on Councillor Rothwell's question, quite often in the past with the SpinRite daycare, we have done fundraising campaigns to augment programs and equipment that the daycare may need or require that's not supplied through either our regular budgeting process or through the City of Stratford. So this $7,500 would certainly go towards those kind of projects, similar to what the SpinRite donation goes to. For those members of council that aren't aware, SpinRite for the naming rights did sign a 10-year commitment to provide $10,000 to the SpinRite Center, and we use those funds to augment the programs that aren't funded through either regular government spending or our provincial or our budget process. Thank you.
Thanks, C.S. Snell. Councillor Andreessen next.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I'm not opposed to dedicating these kinds of funds for the daycare at all. My only thought is that I feel that there should be additional funding set aside for our libraries. I have a lot of concerns about how funding has decreased, and we need some substantial investment into our libraries. So that's some of my concerns that, you know, $7,500 could certainly support our libraries. Again, I'm not opposed to supporting our daycares, but I do have some concerns around that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
If I might, Kasenberg,
Sure.
members of council, the $7,500 could be split, you know, half and half towards the library and half towards daycare operations, and you can make it less specific if you would like. I mean, this is all at council's discretion. This is just a proposal.
Anyone else on our list? The library issue remains with us, and we are going to have to do some serious talking as council this fall. It's going to require a lot more than $7,500 in RBC gift cards, I think, to help with the library concerns and matters that we are that lie ahead of us. So I think that this request actually makes sense. It's consistent with what we've done in the past. I don't inherently have concern about this. And as for the library, Leanne, it lies ahead. We're going to have a significant conversation fairly soon on that subject. So, any other comments from council? Okay, I have a resolution then for consideration. It reads as follows: the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the use of the $7,500 RBC gift card towards purchases of equipment for the new North Perth, Moncton, and St. Mary's Child and Family Centers. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll gladly move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anstitt, would you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion or debate further? Seeing none, let's have that vote. So that is carried. Thank you. We remembered, Councillor Behrens, that you had declared on this one, so just took us a moment to process that. That's all. Thank you. That's item 5.4. Let's move to item 5.4.5. Council is apprised of correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Ontario, to the Mayor outlining the province of Ontario's initiatives to provide funds to support COVID-19 extraordinary expenses of municipal governments, and to authorize the Director of Finance and Treasurer to sign an acknowledgement on behalf of the corporation for funds allocated to transportation. Ms. Hale, any comments on this one?
Yes, we'll make application or acknowledgement of the funds. I've contacted BON to have asked them to provide us with information as to how and what additional expenses that they have incurred. And so that process is in place at this time.
Thank you. So what we're being asked to do, Council, is just to let the Ministry of Transportation know that, where's the Minister of Municipal Affairs? I don't know who is it. It's Mr. Mulroney, right?
Yes, it's transportation.
So it is transportation. Let them know that we're interested and would be happy to consider moving forward. Any questions from council on this or comments? Okay, seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration. Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the Safe Restart Agreement Funding MTO report for information and authorizes the Director of Finance Treasurer to sign the funding acknowledgement to be returned to the Ministry of Transportation. Councillor Andreessen, I call on you to be our mover for that one.
Yes, I'll make that motion, Mayor Kasenberg.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, would you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For item 5.5, we have one item tonight. Let's turn to 5.5.1. Per an earlier request, Council is presented with some information about a styrofoam recycling program in which it may participate. Mr. Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, will give us the scoop and bring forward a recommendation for our consideration. Welcome, Mark Hackett.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. As you mentioned, Council had requested some information on the feasibility of introducing a recycling program for expanded polystyrene. As you mentioned, it's commonly known as styrofoam. And this is very specific. It's rigid in nature. It's the white stuff that's used in packaging for computers, electronics, toys, and things like that. I've included a little bit of an attachment that showed the city of St. Thomas what they've put out, and I think it's good at this point to understand what exactly we're talking about. And it's maybe even better to look at what it's not including. So what it does include is the hard rigid packaging, as I mentioned. What it doesn't include is polyethylene foam, polypropylene foam, packaging peanuts, insulation panels, pool noodles, meat trays, cups and bowls, and takeout containers. So it's a very specific item that they're going to be able to recycle that we're proposing. So a company called Second Wind Recycling that's operated out of St. Thomas, Ontario, is partnering with municipalities to provide depot drops for this EPS, which is collected and processed on site and delivered to recycling facilities as part of a pilot project. They currently use a mobile densification process to serve municipalities, including St. Thomas, Oxford County, Woodstock, Tillsonburg, and the County of Brant. And it's a pilot project that's part of the Continuous Improvement Fund. So to kind of go step by step of what we would need to do, we would simply need to purchase a CCAN, and that would be the 40-foot one, and that would be approximately $3,800 delivered. We would enter into a contract with Second Wind Recycling, and we would schedule densification and collection as needed. And then Second Wind Recycling would then process and market the material. And our main goal would be to get the word out to residents that this is available. On the second page of my report, I've included some targets and costs that were provided by Second Wind, some estimates. So looking at North Perth's 5,100 households, that's the number that they used. We would be able to collect approximately 224 cubic yards annually of loose EPS. They would charge us $7 per yard. So on an operating level, it would cost us about just under $1,600 for a year of this. Some of the additional costs that are setup costs that are included in the agreement that I've also attached include purchasing collection boxes. We'd need 16 of those, $25 each. We would need an exterior promotional sign and an interior specification sign. Those are both $100 each. And then the CCAN, as I mentioned before. So the total cost of setup would be $4,400, plus the cost of the annual operating costs. As I mentioned, it would be close to $1,600 per year based on how much came in. However, it would only be significantly less than that for the first year because there's only a few months left this year if we were to go ahead. I've also included, just to explain the process a little bit, if you could have a look at the EPS process pictures. It's just a number of photos there. You can see the CCAN in the first picture on the top left. And then the inside where you can see the boxes containing the loose EPS. The picture, the one that has the pickup truck and the trailer, that's the actual densification unit. So it's would come on site and their staff would then process the loose EPS. And if you look at there's a block at the bottom left, and you see the box and a little block of styrofoam. That's what would come out of one of the boxes once it's put through the unit. I also noted that the densification unit would reduce the volume by up to a 1:50 ratio. So a total of 52 boxes of loose EPS would fill approximately two 53-foot trailers. And then the densification unit would then reduce the 52 boxes to a 4x4 pallet of densified material stacked 8 feet tall. And that's what the picture on the bottom right would be the final project. That's what two 53-foot trailers would look like. So as you can see, it's a significant space savings that we would encounter at the landfill if we got the amount that they think that we would get in over that time period. And finally, I've included the service agreement. I've talked about most of the items in it already. It would be a pilot project for a minimum of 1 year, and we could renew up to 3 years. And our main goal would then be to promote this project through our available media channels, through social media and things like that, and get the word out that we're collecting it at the landfill. I'd be able to take any questions if council has any.
Thanks, Mark. Councillor Andreessen?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. My question, Mr. Hackett, is just about dealing with the non-approved styrofoam. Typically with recycling, there's a lot of unapproved items that get received. So that requires a great deal of sorting, which can be quite onerous. Just wondering if that sorting process will be manageable and if the non-approved items would be redirected into the landfill. Just wondering about your comments on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. I did bring this up with the people from Second Wind Recycling as well, and it would be really the job of the person the attendant at the site that would then direct people to that they're putting the correct things in the correct place. So prior to having the people come in to do with the densification unit, we would provide a bin there, which would have it beside the unit, so that anything that is not applicable could be put in that, and then it would be landfilled. This is not a curbside program. This is just a depot, and we feel that we'd be able to have pretty good control and awareness for people as they bring the stuff in, and that's a lot of how the advertising would happen too, I believe, word of mouth, right at the landfill when people bring it in.
Councillor Duncan?
I just want to commend Mark for finding this program for us. Anything we can do to direct stuff out of our landfill, to me, is a big win for our municipality. And stuff like this styrofoam, lays there forever and doesn't break down. So I think this is going to be a great program. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell next.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and Mark, thank you for your report. I certainly appreciate that and echo Councillor Duncan's comments. I have two questions. One is specifically about the collection boxes, 16. Are they the sort of cardboard looking boxes that we see in the photos? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Those are considered like a Gaylord box is what they're called. And we would have those, they would just stay. They would just be emptied by the processor when he comes on site, and they stay, they don't go anywhere.
And the follow-up is more a comment than a question. I really appreciate page 2 of your report, page 102 of our agenda, wherein actually they've given us the estimated volumes within our municipality, and further to Councillor Duncan's comments, that's a stunning amount of material that they're estimating that we could be saving from our landfill. And I would certainly speak in favor of this municipality moving forward with this agreement. Thank you.
Okay, any others who wish to get in on the questions or comments before we consider the resolution? Okay, so I have a resolution for our consideration. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorized the Manager of Environmental Services to sign the expanded polystyrene recycling service agreement with Second Wind Recycling. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our mover?
I'd love to move it.
And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you be our seconder for that one?
Absolutely, I'll move that. Very good, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any discussion or debate further? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate the good work there. That brings us to items 5.6 and 5.7. We have no reports tonight from our Manager of Operations or our Fire Chief. Agenda item 6 now. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or our committees? Again, to request that opportunity, indicate in the chat function, the clerk will let me know. Clerk Bearfelds has her hand up, so there's someone. Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. My concern is really the process that occurred earlier in the meeting. and that would be with regards to the resolution that was passed at the meeting previous regarding the Baker Group and Mr. John Friesian's application. The resolution number 452.08, the motion was to approve the application, and as everyone knows, that motion was defeated. So my concern is about the process. If the application, in essence, was not approved, I'm slightly confused by the comment from CAO Snell saying that the bylaw must be brought forward. And I'm just concerned if we could perhaps, if and when staff decide under the procedural bylaw that it should come back, if a report can come back with it so that we understand the ins and outs of the process. Because if we didn't approve the application, you can understand if we approved the application in one meeting and brought the bylaw back at the next meeting, that would make sense. But we didn't approve the application. So I'm concerned that the bylaw is still being brought forward. Those are my comments. I'll let staff investigate that and get back to us at the next meeting. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens. Yes, it's interesting because during the last meeting, I certainly needed to query the clerk about our process. And even in the aftermath of the meeting, wondered again whether we shouldn't have dealt with the bylaw immediately and up and down or not. So you're right, there is a procedural oddity here. And I think it's appropriate for staff in bringing something to us next time should bring us the explanation if the bylaw comes to our table as to why we need to consider this. I believe the answer does relate to LPAT rules and that the bylaw needs to have been considered and rejected by council for a formal appeal to be proceeding. But I think we'll wait for staff to give us their understanding of that, and that should include perhaps a touch base with LPAT just to make sure that we're confident that this is the right solution. So, council, if any of you disagree with the request for a report on this to be attached to our next steps on that particular matter, I'd like to hear it now, but I fully support what Councillor Behrens has requested. Anyone have a concern? Okay, do we have anything else for 6.1? Councillor Seiler next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I just was wondering, would there be an update on our downtown crosswalk that was supposed to be done this year? And what are we doing with our downtown intersection? Are we going to do a shave and pave there, or has it been tendered out, or what's happening with our downtown? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Seiler. Mr. Couch, are you still with us?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Please, if you can.
That tender has been opened and it's been awarded. We're actually meeting with the contractor to talk about what schedule they're going to utilize. It looks like it will be in September, October, and it is a shave and pave operation that'll take us right into the intersection, some of the rough spots in the main intersection, all the way back through the center lanes going up Wallace North. So again, tendered and expected to be done September, October. It depends on their availability of getting the big milling machine in. So I can update probably on our next council report.
Mr. Couch, and anyone next? Yes. Councillor Rothwell next.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. I just would like to request a follow-up report as a result of the letter of item 3.2 from the Ministry of Infrastructure, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, and the implications that is. You sort of mentioned that, Mayor Todd, in your comments, so I just want to specifically ensure that we are going to getting a report from our staff regarding the implications of our applications not being approved, and what that means for us moving forward. That's my first request.
Sure. I think that is coming in due course. I can advise that staff has begun a process, one, to try to see if we can get further insight into the basis for our being turned down in those projects. And we're also beginning the process of what Plan B and Plan C might look like. So there'll be a report in due course. CEO Snell, do you have a sense of timeline on when we might bring back to council some more information on that?
So we're hoping to have a meeting with our partners, the United Way, on the North Perth Library Community Hub project. That meeting has not been established yet due to some vacation time with the partners, and also we will have some upcoming staff time regarding the EMCC too when Amy returns from vacation. So I don't have an exact timeline as of tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Rothwell, you suggested there was a second question.
Yes, and this, I appreciate that, Mayor Todd. The second deals with an issue, and unfortunately it was a fatality at the corner of Perth Line 91 and Perth Road 140, the boundary between Perth County and Wellington County. And perhaps it's the county councillors that could shed some light on this regarding the specific desire of many through social media and other means in terms of relooking at the possibility of a roundabout at that location. Is there something that the county councillors could share, or is it something that we at North Perth Council have to perhaps discuss and make perhaps a resolution of support, if that's the case, for such roundabouts at that location, regarding the need to address safety at that intersection? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. So I'll give a first response as a representative who does serve on a county council. If Callum or Councillor Duncan wish to weigh in, by all means. I have immediately, when I realized that this was becoming an issue on social media, reached out to the warden and to the county to ask about the history on this file, and was given certainly previous reports and information pertaining to the county's actions and considerations around roads in general, routes, more specifically, and circumstances that might create them. I think that Mr. McClelland is on this file. He's talking to OPP as we understand it. And I think one of the factors right now is that these decisions largely have been made in the county according to a process and a policy I believe was adopted in the early part of 2017 relating to roundabouts. And that process uses something of a checklist. And one of the items in the checklist is the sort of, well, and Lyndon knows this word better than I do, but there needs to be some warrants. There needs to be some data that supports the opportunity to do something at an intersection like that. And again, my understanding is that at the time in 2017, the data wasn't there. There certainly wasn't enough to be of concern against the policy and the interpretation of such by county officials. I do know that the warden and the deputy warden have received numerous emails and messages from concerned citizens. I know that the Banner has written about this, so it's certainly in the public media as well. And all I can say is, from my interaction with this so far, is I'm aware that the county is working on it. The county continues to assert that it is very concerned about the safety of all citizens and is going to use the process that's been defined by previous county council to move that forward. So that's what I know. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Duncan, do you have any other knowledge or discussions that you've had?
It's me, Mayor Todd. No, that's exactly the way it's been summed up. And just to add, I know I've been going back and forth with John McClelland as well. And one more thing, he's reached out to Wellington County staff and is working with them to have more discussions with an update on that intersection as well. He's getting another opinion from Wellington OPP to get some data from them. on information and comments, because as you said, nothing, it hasn't changed any different since 2017.
Thanks. Councillor Duncan, do you have anything that you've explored on this one?
No, I don't have anything to add that you two haven't already brought forth.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So that's the answer that we have at this date, Councillor Rothwell. As for our own political action, I think we would be prudent to wait a little bit longer for the county to unfold its process and to collect the data that it needs from the various detachments, apparently, of the OPP. Deputy Mayor Kellum, this is item 6.1. Deputy Mayor Kellum, you have something you want to bring forward?
My question was asked. Yep, or answered, I mean. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone further? Okay, that brings us to item 6.2. And I'm going to call on the Deputy Mayor to bring forward a report, to represent a report from the Council's Human Resources Committee. Deputy Mayor, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to just give a brief report with regards to the market review report for staff compensation. So just a little bit of a background. North Perth, together with municipality of West Perth and the township of Perth East, selected Warden Updegrove through an RFP process as a successful consulting firm for human resources services in April of 2019. With a joint project of a market review. Working together with this joint venture, the municipalities were able to utilize cost-saving measures through combined data collection and explore opportunities aligned compensation practices. The council commitment, I believe, council has committed to a salary philosophy that ensures a compensation system that is fair and equitable, reflects position duties, responsibilities, education, experience, and performance. It enables recruitment and retention, as well conducting an external market review once every council term. Compensation system. The last market review was conducted in 2015. North Perth's current methodology for compensation is to be at the median of our comparator group, the middle of the pack. Methodology ensures that we are not lagging or leading the market, rather strictly staying competitive. It assists us to attract and retain qualified employees to deliver high technical service and is most effective and efficient use of municipal funds for labor. We have HR challenges, obviously. Through participating in the HR committee, we've been advised of the challenges that HR currently are facing. Quickly evolving municipal labor market, skilled and professional positions are difficult to fill quickly. The time lag to fill a skilled professional position is lengthening as we look or try to look for the best candidate. Limited supply of candidates holding the specialized credentials that municipalities seek. Employees are also seeking work-life balance and determining creative ways to enable this to make it happen. Also, the exit of the boomer generation workers, loss of knowledge, stability, and history. Challenges specifically noteworthy to the North Perth are also our population growth rate, the vast range of services that North Perth offers, competition from large urban centers, ease of commute to larger centers, and anticipated retirement of long-serving staff. Attracting new employees to fill the vacancies of exiting staff, given our work environment, can be difficult if we are not maintaining our compensation system. Our current situation, market review has determined that North Perth is currently lagging the medium group by 2.08% and is recommending an average 1.95% adjustment to North Perth's salary grid. I believe the financial implications are detailed within the report. And finally, the HR committee has collaborated with Human Resources and Warden Updegrove throughout the market review process and are supportive of the recommendations brought forward. The HR committee believes that it is important to maintain our commitment to staff through a fair compensation system, which will assist in attracting the best candidates and retaining our dedicated staff. Thank you, and I'll open it up if anyone has any comments at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Kellum. Questions or comments on this report? Okay, so let's we have a resolution then for our consideration with regards to this report coming from the HR committee. It reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth implement the proposed changes to the North Perth pay grid retroactive to July 1st, 2020, incorporating the median market results. Direct the CAO and HR to continue to explore attention and retention strategies, such as total rewards and non-compensatory benefits offerings, to gain a competitive edge for labor. Direct HR to notify employees of the results of the market review and how they are impacted by the new pay grid in writing via personalized letter, and request Warden Updegrove to prepare updated job-to-job and proportional value comparisons of the new pay grid for pay equity maintenance and compliance with legislation. This is moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum as chair of the committee. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our seconder?
Yes, Mayor Todd, I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks, Mayor Todd. And I appreciate our conversation. I appreciate the work that HR committee and certainly Warden and Upgrove have done on our behalf, and the HR and so on. My concern, which I've expressed before, is the unprecedented times we're in terms of budget and what it means for us. Our treasurer and finance manager has told us that we're to anticipate a report coming forward regarding where we're at in terms of our finances and so on. And we know that there's a significant impact on our budget due to COVID-19. And council is very well aware of this. And what my concern is that without knowing what those impacts are, we're prepared to move forward with the recommendation. As important as it is, I would like to know where we're sitting in our budget before we move forward with this amount, which is included in our budget, which I fully understand. But we are looking at something that's very substantial in terms of impact for our municipality and going forward. Many of our ratepayers are not receiving any income increase. As a matter of fact, they're looking at decreases. And I think it's important for us to have the information before us as council before we make this decision moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens?
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I respect, as much as I respect Councillor Rothwell's opinion, I am going to disagree slightly. I think it is imperative that the municipality of North Perth does move forward with the respect of what our staff have been through this year, and with the respect of upholding what we believe to be a true fair compensation policy. Irregardless of the timing, it is important that we maintain it. I know that there are probably a few people on council, both at the upper tier and certainly at North Perth, that knows how much it costs when we start lagging behind the median, which is the middle of the pack. North Perth, unfortunately, has done that a couple of times, and it was quite an expense to catch up to the middle of the pack. So I am wholeheartedly in support of this motion, and I believe truly, in the truest sense of the word, in the interest of the municipality of North Perth, I am in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens. Anyone further? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. The question to, and I'm not sure who it's to, but this was done in conjunction with Perth East and West Perth. Did they both implement it right away, retroactive to July, or did they delay any of it? Can anybody answer that? Thank you.
So I can advise that West Perth has implemented as of July 1st. And I spoke with Mayor Eggetts on the phone late last week, and this topic came up. They're bringing it forward to their council in due course. It's not been there yet, but it's imminent.
Okay, thank you. Just a supplemental to that, and I agree with Councillor Rothwell that if we have a report coming, I would really like to know where we're at. I can see Councillor Bearns's point as well that we do need to not lag behind, because you're right, that has cost us good employees in the past. But I would really like to see where we're at for the budget this year, knowing the just so we know the unknowns of how COVID has affected us.
Thank you. Anyone else listed? Okay, well, I have some remarks on this one too, as council might anticipate. And, you know, some issues I don't have to weigh in on because the issue is covered well by other councillors. This issue feels important and potentially challenging. Perhaps like our chickens issue, I don't know. But certainly we will face challenges and potential challenges as elected officials, and sometimes it's locked up in perception. I think the issue of the staff pay grade adjustments, which lead to staff pay raises, is one of those perception issues. I'm going to speak directly about this. Amongst other charming attributes, we are creatures that make comparisons. It serves us well often enough. We can come to good decisions on trade-off analyses and best outcomes for the most people and so forth. A pay raise for staff of a government is just one of those areas where our comparative tendencies might fail us. It might seem a bit off to be suggesting a pay raise to our employees in the midst of an economic period provoked by a global pandemic in which many have experienced significant loss in their personal economic affairs. I get how that might seem even a bit tone deaf. But let's face it, there will always be a cohort in our population who will devalue the work of government employees. It is generally, fortunately, I think, a small proportion of people, but they will never be happy about how much employees are paid, preferring instead to see government employees endlessly subject to income erosion through no raises. I am committed to a belief that you pay people for their honest work in accordance with the principles that our council has affirmed over many years. So my message is this: don't draw the connection between the provision of reasonable pay grid adjustments for municipal employees and the loss of incomes and livelihoods in our community. They are not directly connected. One situation, the negative impacts of the pandemic on certain residents of North Perth, is truly hurtful. And your municipal government is working with volunteers, staff, and people of goodwill to take direct action, advocate for you with other levels of government for compassionate and fair supports and more. But that economic misfortune is not made better or worse by a decision about municipal employees. Our job as a council is to ensure that our corporation is successful, as Councillor Bearns has alluded to, meets our aspirations and goals, and brings about good things for our beloved community. This notion that because some citizens are suffering, we shouldn't give employees reasonable raises is a misguided comparison, in my opinion. So let's talk this raise. We have a very modest aspiration to be middle of the pay pack. I personally think we're already negatively affected by that kind of thinking, since it will deter many fine potential candidates from serving in our wonderful nation. This has been our policy, and I can see the wisdom in it. We are very fortunate to have the employee team that we do have. We must not rest on a policy of getting below the middle of the pack when it comes to pay. And we know that some of our senior staff are in the retirement zone, so we need to be competitive to selectively recruit. Already, too many organizations in our community are recruiting for fit and attitude in the unfortunate absence of technical skill set and experience. Our work as a municipal corporation requires a pretty rare skill set, and the people who hold it, for better or worse, are fewer and further between as retirements roll across the system and we fail to bring new young blood into the municipal sector as municipal employees. I am of the opinion, self-serving though it may be, that we need to remain competitive in our ability to recruit new employees. In fact, even today, we have been given an indication that we have lost a good employee to another municipality, and we are anticipating another departure. Yes, the clerk was reminding me of that. I am beyond this committed to doing what is fair. Market data from a reasonable set of municipal sector comparisons as shared with us from an external consultant we commissioned well before the pandemic period tell us that we do need to do a little better on our pay scale at this time. Our people deserve to be paid appropriate to their experience and their skills and the market. It is about fairness. During this year's budgeting, HR had the good sense to request that the funds be made available for a pay grade adjustment, knowing historical experience and that a report suggesting adjustments was looming. We have the funds available. One of our co-journeyists in this consultant hiring, West Perth, has already approved their change, one a bit larger than the one that we actually face. I want to conclude by saying I get that part of what we do is symbolic. We speak about symbolic leadership. I speak about that with my clients of my own business. I get how comparison instinct may have kicked in here and suggested that the troubles of some of our community will prompt some to think we aren't responsible with the money. But I feel that is the incorrect mental model to be using. In approving this pay increase, we are being symbolic in the right way, letting people know that our people are our best assets, that we value our team immensely, and that all other employees in the community should give heed to our example to do the right thing about labor compensation when the data supports it. It is for that reason, while always mindful of our budget, and don't get me wrong, I'm always mindful, that I refuse the false equivalency that some have proposed here and endorse this resolution to adjust the pay grid in accordance with the consultant's recommendations. Any further discussion or debate? Anything else? Anyone else? Oh. Okay, so we have this duly moved and seconded. Let's have the vote. And that's carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 7. We have received one item of correspondence that staff has advised warrants further action. For item 7.1, we have a request from the Listowel Agricultural Society to permit the closing of a road for the purposes of a fireworks display in September 2020. I'm getting excited here. I'm smiling because it reminds me of my grandmother who loved fireworks. Staff has prepared a resolution to support this request that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the request from the Listowel Agricultural Society to close Germain Avenue South from Main Street, Highway 86, to Clayton Street East on Sunday, September 6th, rain date September 7th, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. to host the drive-in fireworks show. I hope someone else is as excited about fireworks as I am. Let's try Councillor Johnston. Are you excited about fireworks? Councillor Johnston, will you serve as a mover of this?
I would love to move that, and I definitely can't wait for the evening.
Awesome, thank you. We'll see each other there in the cars. Councillor Rothwell, would you like to be the second?
I'm very excited. I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Well, that was kind of a mayor bias there, wasn't it? All right, let's have that vote. Okay, thank you, and that's carried. Noting Councillor Andreessen's noted conflict. That brings us to agenda item number 8, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. We don't have any additional to deal with this evening. That brings us to council to agenda item number 9. Are there any notices of motion from councillors attending this evening? And we're not any hands waved, but we are hearing someone off mute. That's not good. So whoever's off mute, please act appropriately. Now, agenda item 10. For item 10.1, besides these fireworks that are coming up, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Again, if you'd like to speak, just indicate to Clerk Bearfelds through the chat window. All fireworks all the time. That's the way it would be. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 11. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council, which means we can also skip past item number 12. We have nothing to report on a closed session. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called a confirmatory bylaw. And I have the draft for that here, number 126/2020, which reads as follows: that bylaw number 126/2020 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. That the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for that?
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder, please? Oh, she's declared. That's right. Councillor Anstead, up to you.
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on that? Seeing none, let's have that vote. So that's carried. Thank you. And Councillor, that brings us to the magic hour here. We have completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that did come before us tonight. Before I read a motion to adjourn, is there any further business? Seeing no indication of same, I have a resolution for our adjournment that reads as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 8:57 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, September 14th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Councillor Andreessen, can I call on you to serve as our mover?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
All right, let's have that vote. And that is carried. This meeting is adjourned. We'll see you in September. I'm sure I'll see a whole bunch of you at the fireworks. Thanks. Have a good night.